There comes a moment in life when what we carry inside us, our gifts, our intuition, our silent knowing, begins to press against the boundaries of the ordinary world. We sense that our purpose is not merely to survive, but to serve, to build, to express, to awaken others. And yet we hesitate. We separate the sacred from the practical. We treat our spiritual gifts as secrets to keep, not seeds to plant. But what if your inner light could also sustain your outer life? What if your calling was not meant to remain a whisper, but to become a voice, a business, a mission, a movement? This is not a new idea. It is an ancient remembering. And today we will explore how to turn your spiritual gifts into a business one that not only earns, but elevates. There is a silent tragedy unfolding in the lives of so many gifted individuals. People whose inner lives are rich with intuition, insight, and sensitivity, yet who hesitate to share those gifts with the world in any practical, empowered way. They bury their talent under a fear that whispers, "This isn't marketable or no one would pay for this." But this doubt, though it feels rational, is not rooted in truth. It is rooted in wounds. Wounds formed by a world that worships logic and dismisses the unseen. And yet the very fabric of human life is woven from the unseen. Dreams, emotions, spirit, imagination. What if the very thing you have been told is weird or soft or unmarketable is actually your greatest contribution? We live in a world flooded with information and starving for wisdom, flooded with noise and longing for stillness. People are searching for something they cannot always name, something deeper, something real. And here you are, holding that depth, holding that reality, carrying the medicine of presence, intuition, and truth. The economy of consciousness is emerging slowly, replacing the worn-out ideals of purely material success. In this new economy, your ability to read energy, to hold space, to listen deeply, to guide others through emotional or spiritual turmoil is not an afterthought. It is a cornerstone. Still, many ask, but who am I to charge money for something that feels so natural to me? That question itself is the clue. The very fact that it comes naturally to you is why it holds value. What flows through you without force is what others are struggling to find. You do not need to manipulate people to create demand. Your authenticity is the demand, and you do not need to dilute your truth in order to make it marketable. What people truly seek is not polished performance. They seek resonance. Take Sarah, for instance, a single mother whose life felt ordinary until she began recording short mindfulness meditations on her phone just as a personal outlet. She didn't set out to build a business. She simply followed what felt aligned. Her voice, her tone, her sincerity. All of it found people. People who couldn't sleep. People who felt overwhelmed. People who were quietly unraveling inside the speed and pressure of modern life. Within a year, she had gathered thousands of listeners. She created a membership platform, built digital courses, and eventually began speaking to companies on the role of inner calm in productivity. All of this not by abandoning who she was, but by becoming even more of it. What happened with Sarah was not luck. It was alignment. And what allowed that alignment to become impact was her recognition that her gift had value. Not just emotional or spiritual value, but economic value. And that value is not a betrayal of her spirit. It is a reflection of it. Your gift might not look like hers. You might be a dream interpreter, a spiritual coach, an energy healer, a writer of soul-stirring poetry, or someone who simply holds a kind of emotional intelligence that others rely on. No matter what form it takes, your gift is a response to a wound in the collective. Your gift is needed not because it is rare, but because it is real. The modern world celebrates what is fast, loud, and clever. But beneath the surface, there is a quiet revolution unfolding. People are turning away from empty success. They are seeking wholeness. And wholeness is not found in apps or algorithms. It is found in human connection, in presence, in insight. And that is where you come in. To recognize your gift as real-world value is not to commercialize your soul. It is to honor it. It is to finally allow what is most sacred in you to take up space not just in private journals or late-night conversations, but in public, visible, supported forms. It is to realize that the world will not treat your gift as valuable until you do. So do not shrink. Do not silence the thing inside you that the world desperately needs. In a time of noise, your stillness is medicine. In a time of confusion, your clarity is gold. In a time of performance, your truth is a product. Do not be afraid to offer it. The world is waiting, not for your perfection, but for your presence. There is a force within each of us, a living current that flows from the center of our being. It whispers in dreams, in moments of intuition, in the quiet knowing that rises when logic has failed. This current is your gift, spiritual, creative, intuitive, empathic. But like all living things, it must be held if it is to grow. It must be contained not in the sense of being confined, but in the way water finds power only when channeled through a riverbed. Without a bank, the river floods aimlessly. Without a vessel, your gift spills over unseen, unfelt, unfocused. There is a deep fear that creating a structure around what is sacred will cheapen it. Many spiritually attuned individuals resist form, believing that purity lies in spontaneity, in freedom without direction. But this belief, though romantic, is often a disguise for fear, a fear of visibility, a fear of rejection, a fear of failing in a world that demands coherence. Yet structure does not betray the soul, it reveals it. The chalice does not diminish the sacred water it holds. It lifts it, offers it, shares it. In the same way, your gift becomes more powerful, more reachable, more transformative when it is offered through a clear and intentional form. To build a container for your gift is not to reduce it, but to give it legs to walk into the lives of others. Whether it's a healing session, a coaching program, an online course, a handcrafted journal, a podcast, or a spiritual product, the format is not the essence, but it is the vehicle. Imagine the difference between a beautiful symphony floating through the air and one that is recorded, performed, and shared. The experience changes lives only when it is carried into time and space. Think of Jamal, a quiet man with the ability to understand dreams in a way that felt mystical. For years, he gave his insights away in comment threads and private messages, never asking for compensation, never creating a clear offering. He believed, like many do, that the sacred cannot be sold. And yet he felt drained spiritually and financially. He knew he was helping people, but he remained invisible to a wider audience. Then, one evening, in a moment of tired clarity, he decided to organize his knowledge into a 4-week guided dreamwork course. He set a price, opened enrollment, and something shifted, not just in his clients, but in him. He was no longer scattering his energy, he was channeling it. The course became a container, a living space where his gift could dwell and multiply. He left his unfulfilling job months later, not out of rebellion, but out of alignment. This is the transformation that occurs when you stop treating your gift as something occasional and begin treating it as a calling. But a calling like fire must be tended. It must be given the wood of structure, the oxygen of planning, the space to grow into more than an occasional flicker. Too often we say, "I'll offer my gift when I feel ready." But readiness comes from action, not from waiting. The path reveals itself only after the first stone is placed. There is an ancient part of you that knows how to build. You've done it before in art, in conversations, in silent moments of clarity. This part of you isn't afraid of form. It understands that beauty in its fullest expression requires grounding. The bird needs wings, but it also needs air. The soul needs freedom, but it also needs form. The paradox is not a prison. It is a portal. When you allow yourself to step into both freedom and structure, you enter the world as a whole being. You are not here just to possess insight. You are here to translate it, to give it a body, to bring heaven into earth, not as dogma or performance, but as living truth shaped in a way that others can hold. If you do not build a container, your gift will stay locked inside your chest, haunting you with its silence. But when you build it even imperfectly, you offer something timeless, a path, a process, a piece of light made visible. So let your gift rise and give it shape. Let it speak through a system, a product, a practice. The world does not just need your brilliance, it needs your bridge. There exists, often hidden beneath the surface of consciousness, a subtle but powerful wound, a fracture between the sacred and the material. This wound whispers that anything divine should be given freely, that to ask for money in exchange for spiritual service is somehow to profane it. It is a belief inherited not from truth, but from centuries of separation between spirit and matter, heaven and earth, soul and body. Yet the psyche is not divided. Life is not divided. And when we carry this internal split, we unconsciously sabotage our ability to live in wholeness. This is why the issue of money is not just logistical. It is deeply psychological. Many gifted individuals feel discomfort, even shame around charging for their work. They hesitate, apologize, minimize, or underprice. Not because they lack skill, but because they carry the imprint of an ancient story that purity must be poor and the power must be invisible. But this story is outdated. The world we live in now requires us to evolve beyond it. It calls for integration, not the rejection of money, but the reconciliation of it with the sacred. Money is not inherently good or evil. It is simply a carrier of energy, the symbol of exchange in the hands of the conscious. It becomes a force of healing. When someone comes to you seeking transformation, whether that be through insight, healing, clarity, or presence, they are asking you to walk with them through the dark. They are asking you to hold space that most cannot, to see what others don't, to listen when the world has gone deaf. This is not a small thing. It is not trivial. It is not free. Not because you are greedy, but because real service costs something. It costs time, presence, emotional labor, preparation, education, and often personal sacrifice. When you ask for money, you are not selling your soul. You are setting a boundary around your energy so that it is valued and not depleted. And when people pay for something, they show up differently. They listen more deeply. They engage more fully. They take the work seriously. In fact, the exchange of money often signals to the unconscious that something important is happening. A threshold has been crossed. A decision has been made. The client is not just buying a session. They are investing in their own transformation. I remember a healer who once told me she could not charge more than $30 per session. People wouldn't understand, she said. But over time, she began to notice that those who paid little often skipped appointments, ignored her guidance, or didn't follow through. The energy was unbalanced. She felt drained. Finally, with great resistance, she raised her prices not arbitrarily, but to a level that felt aligned with the depth of her offering. To her surprise, everything changed. The clients who came respected her time, cherished the experience, and received deeper results. It wasn't about the number. It was about the permission she gave herself to be honored and the signal that sent to others. This is not about greed. Greed takes without giving. But you are not taking. You are giving in a way that is rare and irreplaceable. To receive money in exchange is not to corrupt the gift, but to nourish it. Think for a moment how much more you could offer the world if you were financially supported. Imagine the programs you could build, the environments you could create, the people you could serve. Imagine being rested enough to give your best, resourced enough to expand your reach, and empowered enough to grow your mission. To deny yourself, that is not humility. It is fear disguised as virtue. The true spiritual path requires wholeness, and wholeness cannot exist where money is demonized. Just as you would never plant a seed and refuse to water it, you must not plant your gift and refuse to let it be sustained. Worthiness is not earned by struggle. It is remembered through acceptance. You are not a burden. Your presence is not an accident. And your gift was never meant to be hidden in the shadows of guilt or shame. There are people waiting for you. Waiting not only for your words or your wisdom, but for the container you will create, the offering that allows them to enter, to receive, to transform. And for that to happen, There must be exchange. It must be balanced. It must be grounded in reality as much as in spirit. You are not here to perform miracles and then disappear. You are here to build something that lasts, something that supports you as much as it serves others. To honor your gift is to price it with truth, to receive with grace, to walk in both the seen and the unseen with integrity. Money is not the enemy of the sacred. It is one of its many languages. Speak it fluently, use it wisely, and let it become part of your evolution. In a world increasingly shaped by algorithms and artificial intelligence, there remains a deep and timeless need within the human soul. The need for connection, not data, not performance, not perfection, but genuine, heartfelt human connection. And yet this is precisely what gets lost when we try to turn ourselves into a brand. There is nothing inherently wrong with branding, but when it becomes a mask rather than a mirror, we lose what is most powerful about who we are. A brand, after all, is only useful if it points towards something real. But far too many spiritual entrepreneurs, artists, healers, and guides begin to construct a version of themselves designed to impress rather than to express. They curate rather than create. They polish rather than reveal. And in doing so, they disconnect from the very thing people are seeking: the truth. The truth is magnetic. It calls to something ancient inside of us, something buried but not forgotten. People don't want to be sold to. They want to be seen. They don't want a persona. They want a presence. They want to feel the pulse behind the post, the heartbeat behind the headline. They want to know that you are real, that you have walked through the fire, not just studied the flames, that you are not standing above them, handing down advice from a pedestal, but standing beside them, sharing from the trenches of your own becoming. There is no formula for authenticity because it is not a strategy. It is a state of being. It arises not from trying, but from allowing. Allowing your full self to be visible, even if imperfect, especially if imperfect, because it is the cracks in your story that let others feel safe in their own. It is not your success that will ultimately draw people to you. It is your sincerity, your courage to speak what is hard to admit, what is real, to show up not as an expert, but as a human. I once knew a man who had struggled with debilitating anxiety and depression for years. For a long time, he told no one. He kept his pain in the margins, treating it as a private battle. But in time, through therapy and inner work, he began writing first, just for himself. Journaling became his lifeline, a daily ritual of survival. Eventually, he began sharing bits of his writing online, raw and unfiltered. Unfiltered. People responded not with applause, but with tears, with gratitude, with messages like, "I thought I was the only one." That's when he realized his pain was not just a wound, it was a bridge. He didn't have a fancy brand. He didn't launch with professional photos or sales funnels. He just told the truth. And that truth became a movement. Today, his journal brand is thriving, but not because of the paper or the design. It thrives because each product carries a piece of his story, a piece of the path he walked through darkness. This is what it means to build a business with soul. It doesn't mean you neglect strategy, but it means the strategy grows from your essence, not your ego. It means that every offer, every piece of content, every word you write, every video you record is rooted in your lived experience. It is less about becoming something and more about uncovering who you already are. When people feel that they remember something in themselves, they begin to trust you not because of how polished you are, but because of how present you are. In this age of constant noise, your presence becomes your power. You do not need to shout to be heard. You need only to be sincere. You need only to be yourself. The part of you that you're tempted to hide is often the part that will heal others. The story you're afraid to tell is the one someone else is waiting to hear. When you stop performing and start revealing, you create space for others to do the same. You may think that you must become someone else in order to succeed, but success built on imitation will always feel hollow. What is the point of arriving at the top if you've abandoned yourself on the way up? There is nothing more exhausting than trying to keep up a version of yourself that isn't real. And there is nothing more liberating than realizing that your real self, the one with flaws, history, emotion, depth, is more than enough. Your content, your products, your offerings should feel like an extension of your soul. Not a marketing campaign, but a love letter. Not a pitch, but a prayer. When you trust that your energy speaks louder than your strategy, something magical happens. The right people find you. Not because you chased them, but because you called to them with your truth. So remember, you are not here to become a brand. You are here to become yourself more fully, and then offer that self to the world with courage. That is what people are searching for. That is what they will pay for. Not the illusion of perfection, but the experience of truth. Your vibe is your algorithm. Let it speak. There is a hidden truth that escapes most when they embark on the journey of building a business from their spiritual gift. They assume it is a one-way path, something they do for others, something they build to serve the world. But the deeper reality is this: what you build in the world builds you in return. Every offer, every client, every challenge becomes a tool not only for service, but for transformation. The business you give birth to becomes the crucible in which you yourself are reborn. You will not emerge from this unchanged, and you are not meant to. The soul does not seek comfort. It seeks expansion. It longs not for safety, but for integration. And nothing brings more rapid integration than creating something that asks all of you to show up. Your spiritual business will confront you with every hidden corner you've avoided. It will bring forward your fears. Fear of rejection, fear of visibility, fear of unworthiness, fear of failure, fear of success. These shadows do not arise to stop you. They arise because you are finally strong enough to meet them. In the beginning, you may believe you are creating a business model, a set of offerings, a brand. But very soon you realize you are creating a mirror, a sacred mirror through which you see yourself more clearly. Your insecurities, your patterns, your self-talk, your ability to hold space for others while also holding space for your own doubts, it all becomes visible. And in that visibility, you are invited to evolve. Each interaction becomes an initiation. A client you struggle to please shows you your need for validation. A failed launch shows you where you are still attached to outcome. A negative review brings up the parts of you still hungry for praise. But this is not punishment. It is purification. The external world is showing you what still remains unresolved internally. And as you heal, your work becomes more potent. As you evolve, your business becomes more aligned. The more you clear what is false, the more what is true shines through. Think of the butterfly. Its wings are not formed in freedom, but in the pressure of the cocoon. The struggle to emerge is not an obstacle. It is essential. Without the effort, the wings would never strengthen. Without resistance, there would be no lift. In the same way, you cannot bypass your transformation on the path of entrepreneurship. You must meet the parts of yourself that have remained dormant. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. Your very presence begins to carry wisdom. You no longer speak from theory. You speak from experience. You become not just a service provider, but a guide. Not just a teacher, but a transmission. The pain you once felt, loneliness, confusion, fear, becomes the very bridge that connects you to others. You are no longer afraid to share your story because you have integrated it. You are no longer shaken by failure because you know failure is a fire that reveals what is indestructible in you. And when your business becomes the space where you meet yourself most fully, it also becomes the space where others find the courage to meet themselves. Every launch becomes more than strategy. It becomes a lesson in trust. Every month of low income becomes a test of faith. Every moment of doubt becomes a doorway into deeper conviction. And slowly you begin to see that the business was never separate from your path. It is your path. It is the alchemical process through which your gift becomes mature, through which your voice becomes stable, through which your presence becomes medicine. The truth is, you do not have to be fully healed to start. You do not have to be perfect to lead. You only have to be willing. Willing to learn, willing to fall, willing to rise again. It is in the living of the journey, not the mastery of it, that your power is born. And those who come to you, they don't need your perfection. They need your presence. They need to see someone who is in motion, someone who is real, someone who has walked into the fire and come out carrying light. Your business is not an end. It is a beginning. It is the unfolding of the self you came here to become. Let it stretch you. Let it refine you. Let it reveal you, not just to the world, but to yourself. You will not stay the same. You are not meant to. This is not merely commerce. It is initiation. And the gift you offer others will always be rooted in the depth of what you've lived through. So give generously, but also listen closely, because your business is not just what you teach. It is what you're here to learn. And as you evolve, it evolves. As you rise, it rises. Let the journey shape you. Let it make you whole. So I invite you, I dare you to begin to bring your inner light into outer form, to stop hiding your gift and start housing it in a structure that serves to make money without guilt, impact without ego, and evolution without apology. The world does not just need more businesses, it needs more awakened ones. Bow with